That is right. I watched 39 separate videos, and this is what my verdict was. Welcome back, this is Board Game Officer. So today we are doing another review of reviews, meta-analysis, all that fun stuff to look at Dragon Eclipse. First thing that I always like to do is run through the Kickstarter really as quick as I can. We'll go through the good, we'll go through the bad, we'll go through who's backing it, and we'll go through whether or not it's for you or not, and my overall thoughts after going through 39 different videos. Let's jump on in. Alright, so here we have Dragon Eclipse. You can see it only has $3 million already, which is actually quite amazing for nowadays. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a good $3 million Kickstarter now. As you can see, it is a 1 to 2 player game, 14 plus, about 60 minutes per play. This is a 1 to 2 player co-op experience. Discover and befriend missing elemental creatures, discover cards, and build power for deck. If you've seen all the other reviews, this is a very Pokemon-esque type of game with a lot of different gameplay areas. That has the solo or co-op experience, that has the 1v1, it has a roguelite mode, and it's 100% replayable, as they state. So I'm really going to go really quick through this, kind of right off the bat. There's very little information in this Kickstarter about the game itself. This is more of a Kickstarter page to show what we'll get, not what you will play. You know, we'll go into my good and bad reviews later on, but I'm just putting that out front. So why back now? Get twice as much for the same money, meaning you're going to get a lot of Kickstarter exclusive stuff here, as you can see here. The core pledge with the special edition is $120, which is not too bad actually. You're going to be getting 4 boxes, 37 unique miscellaneous here. As you see, this is just the core box here. Stretch goals add a lot more, but you can see these are the basic ones here. Here's the extra stretch goals ones that come on. All right, here we go. There's only $55 for the standard edition, which is not bad at all. Like if you want standees without all the extra miniatures and all the fancy stuff, a 100% playable game for 55 bucks really is not that bad. And then you can get special edition for 120, double the price, a little over double the price to get the special edition. Goes through what you're going to get in that box there, goes through the 4 boxes of the main one, the roguelite, PvP, stretch goals, and then the core box. Every missing pack included, showing the standee and the miniature, a trace lot, some organization stuff that you can get. Here is an exalted Gadion. Now it's just going to go through and show you close up of all the miniatures that were shown up here. Nothing new through all of this. I'm just going to go through this real quick because it's just big pictures. I mean, they're fancy, don't get me wrong, they're really nice. Like look how, like that is freaking awesome. Exalted Iceling, super cool, but it doesn't tell you anything more about the game. It just makes the game look really cool. We'll go through the booster packs. I'll go through more about the booster packs, what's inside the booster packs, the foil showing what the foil is, the encyclopedia, aka the Pokedex kind of thing that tells you about each misling. You've got the adventure book. This looks really cool actually, the way that they've done this. A lot of the cards. Here's the arena little play area. As you can see, it does look like it comes with a book, so it does seem like it will change between scenarios, which hopefully it's not just the background. As you can see, the background there is changes, but hopefully the actual map changes well. Shows you the roguelite area. It's kind of like a how long you could survive kind of game. Every time you die, you get experience as well, so each time you play, you might be able to get a little bit further. Now here we got the special edition for 120. We have the standard with standees for only 55. The essential gameplay edition with just standees is 80. Still not too bad. The collector's edition 184. The Dragon Eclipse Guardian edition for 264. This is all American. And now we go into the stretch goals that we have. We got one more stretch goals coming up towards the end here. Here we have everything else, which, you know, like I said, it's just more miscellaneous, more cards, another map, more miscellaneous you come after. I mean, these miscellaneous are really cool looking. Go on there. Now we can go on to the add-on. They have added some terrain pack, which Untamed Arena. So basically what this does, it adds a lot more cards to your deck, so they're more customizable, as well as makes a 2v2 or 1v1 duels because you have more cards, so you're able to play with more characters, with more people. Combat decks is, you know, just storage there. We have the arena play mats. These are the neoprene mats. More special cards, alternative card art, it looks like. A bigger area for the Untamed Arena one, for the 1v1v1 or the 2v2. These here, this is the special edition, this is the standard edition, but it's just an expansion with more scenarios, more enemies, more mislings that you could catch and everything, or tame. You got the sleeves, you got the art book, you got 6 more misling sets, which is giving you 6 more mislings that aren't found anywhere else. These are called they call them a stretch goal spotlight, which is just your daily unlocks. You've got new versions of cards, you've got more mislings that you could tame, you've got another type of adventure book there, you've got another misling, more cards, more misling, more mislings. Day 1 coming soon, so we are going to see at least one more here, and then we get into all of the videos, which I've watched all these plus a lot more. So we're not going to spend any time on those. Oh, this kind of talks about the co-op feature here. Now this thing I want to point out here too, because this was a couple people said they were worried about how the 2-player co-op version would work, but this has been added to it, showing that each player will have their own misling, because a lot of people were worried that if it's like 1 to 2 players, meaning it's like solo, but the second person is just gonna be like a little side character to help out. But it really looks like you'll have two mislings, like two Pokemon that you're gonna be able to attack with. So I think that's gonna be really cool. And here's like the big thing with their like booster packs, collectible adventure card game without the randomness, without no product randomness, no extra paying for those booster cards or everything, but you get the fill because you could open up individual packs. I think it's an interesting pull, but I mean, they're doing pretty good with it. Once again, talking about the miniatures, I mean, these are pretty darn cool. These are cool pictures here with that light. They know how to sell, that's for sure. Here's the sun drop highlights here. Once again, look pretty sweet. Then they're talking about, you know, Awakened Realms quality through all their past games. And now we get into the shipping, 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you get your game and it doesn't meet your expectations, you can send it back to us, refund you the value of your pledge, no questions asked. What does that mean? I have not seen that before. I have not seen anyone talk about that. I don't know what that, like how long will they value that for? Like within 3 months, within 6 months, within a year, within a 2, like when are you able to send it back? That's super interesting. Although I do want to point out, refund the value of your pledge, meaning not everything you paid, like shipping and everything, taxes, VAT, not going to be reimbursed, just the value of the pledge. Just point that out there, but still, that's not too bad. And now we talk about the shipping, which is actually really cool. They actually have, for each reward that you, or each pledge, they have exactly what they think it's going to cost. So you can see anywhere for the EU, anywhere from 14 to 26. The US is 16 to 30 bucks. So about on par with what you would think, or at least what's been going out so far. Once again, hopefully it'll stay around there, right? And this is actually kind of cool. Shows you how they're going to box it, showing that they are going to take care of it while they ship it to you. And there we go. All right, so that was a quick 10-minute what is this game. Let's go ahead and jump about all the good that everybody was talking about. So this game does play with an adventure portion and a combat portion. Everyone talked about the cool card mechanic here, where there's four slots of cards, and depending on which one you use, depending on actual resources you get, which is very interesting because usually you pay for the cards that you have, rather depending on where the card is, you actually get it. Everyone talked about how that card mechanic was pretty cool. With that is the deck construction. You're actually constructing your own deck depending on what misling you're using, what element your misling is, and then what other cards you have uncovered through the booster pack, right? So that's pretty cool. It actually had a really cool push mechanic that a lot of people talked about. During the adventure, you're going to be flipping over cards and you need to get to a certain number, but you can't get over that number, right? It's kind of like 21 where you're trying to see how many times you can hit without going over, but you want to get as close to it, which is kind of a cool push your luck mechanic just for the adventure mode, you know, making decisions and stuff. One person did talk about how it's really cool. So you could tame the creatures, right? Or catching them, but it's really the taming mechanism is actually really cool. Instead of just like throwing a Pokeball, you know, getting them weak, throwing a Pokeball, seeing if you can catch it. Each misling's going to have like a certain goals you have to meet to be able to tame that creature. So each creature is going to be different of how to tame it, which makes it more unique and cool to tame each individual misling. It really does have a good adventure mode as you're going through. A lot of people talked about how the adventure mode was actually really compelling, which brings me right into the next part that everyone talked about, or a lot of people talked about, was the story. The story actually wasn't too bad. They really felt engaged with the characters and with the mislings, and because with this, each misling has their own story and scenarios that you could play for that misling. And so they talked about how like they wanted to know more about what was happening with this misling, what's going to happen. So the story was pretty compelling with that. And with that is that they're already very different paths. They played, you know, there was 2 or 3 scenarios, I think just 2 scenarios with the prototype. Even within those 2 scenarios, they were looking at mislings that they had cards for that they never even saw, right? So even just within 2, you're finding some mislings and not finding some, really taking different paths, which can be really cool. And then going along with that, I talked about, you know, there being adventure mode and a combat mode. They talked about that flow of both combat and the adventure mode and between is actually really smooth and pretty darn simple, really making the gameplay pretty quick and fast, as it wasn't too fiddly in that sense. And with that, meaning that it is a pretty approachable game because it's simple, it's quick to set up. One person talked about how they read the rulebook once and played the game and only had to reference the rulebook like once or twice. And someone said that it's very simple but very enjoyable combat, which I think goes towards that smoothness of the combat because it's pretty simple, but it's very enjoyable at the same time. Every single person did talk about the high quality Awakened Realms quality of miniatures, the art, all that stuff is that high quality Awakened Realms that you would expect from them. And once again, going back to the combat and the adventures, everything felt very rewarding. A lot of people talked about how just that felt rewarding, the actions of combat, making your choices, pushing your luck mechanism, all that was very enjoying and engaging, and quoted a very satisfied experience. I think it was that Alex from Board Game Co that talked about it just being a very satisfying experience throughout the whole thing. Now, it did talk about being replayable. It does talk about how those booster packs are resealable, so you can put the cards back in the booster pack if you want to reopen them. I still don't totally understand why you would want to do that. I don't know if those booster packs are going to be opened at a certain point, so you put them back so you can slowly open them again, or if there's random, but they talked about not being any randomness. So I'm not sure why you would want to put them back in the booster pack. But they did say that you can do that, so it is replayable. And talking about there's so many different misslings and so many different enemies and things you could do. So the variety was actually really well. A lot of variety, meaning replayability increases with that variety. Once again, talking about this $55 pledge level, excellent deal to get this at $55. With it being like that, it's like, well, why wouldn't I at least try it, right, for 55 bucks, especially having the satisfaction. Something I wanted to point out here too, which I didn't point out before, is your pledge is safe with us. We continued producing, shipping, and delivering games during one of the biggest logistic crises 2022 through 2022 without any extra cost for consumers. Meaning they're kind of putting their hand out there saying, hey, we're not going to charge you anymore after we charge you shipping. So hopefully they don't. I know there's still companies out there that are doing it, but they haven't, and they're saying that they won't ever do it. All right, now I just want to go through some quotes, some of the good quotes that came through that I don't think were necessarily on this campaign, but Bauer's Gaming Corner, one of the halfway through, he's like, I'm sold with the $55 price tag and with all the miniatures, like, well, I guess the miniatures are not the 55, but with all the art and what it looks like, he was sold. Shelf Clutter did say that it was both a Discord and personal pick of the week when he does all of his reviews. He did pick this one. Ant Lab Games stated, I am really excited for this one to actually come out. So playing the prototype and he wanted more of it, so that's cool. Mike from One Stop Co-op Shop talked about that. He's really excited for this one to come out to Kickstarter, right? He did this before Kickstarter started. Also from Ant Lab Games stated, I have very high hopes for the game. One of the biggest things, especially here, and this came from Alex from Board Game Co., is that it will hold its value. Well, he thinks it will hold its value, right? There's no promise to that. But both with it being an Awakening Realms game, whose all of their previous ones have held their value, with the $55 price tag, not too bad. So that is a thing to note, at least from Alex. All right, I actually added a section in here that's good nor bad. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's something, but depending on who you are, that's a good thing or a bad thing. So I had a hard time putting it in different categories because it just depends on who you are. The first one, it catches the Pokemon vibe very, very well. Meaning, if you like Pokemon, that's great. This is for you. But if you're like, I don't want more Pokemon stuff, I never did when I was a kid, I don't want it now, then maybe you don't want this, right? So that's kind of a good or bad thing. Once again, this is not a TCG or CCG because it looks like it. Once again, good thing or bad thing. Maybe you love TCGs and you want another one. This is not for you if that's the case. But if you're like, oh, it's actually not a TCG or CCG, then actually maybe this I'll like this, right? So that's like good or bad there. Now this is kind of like where's the lighter complexity. It can be played with family, like for that complexity, but it still has that adult. So it's kind of there in the middle between like not super complex, but not super simple, right? This is no Madara or Oathsworn or anything, right? Not that type of high complexity. This is how I roll. That's right. Anyways, so let's go on into the bad. So the first thing was talking about the deck construction. So the deck construction is limited to 10 cards, which for a deck construction sounds very, very small. Usually when you have a deck that's small, you're building it or it's getting larger, or very rarely does it stay at that size. And so he talked about how he felt like he wasn't able to build the deck the way he wanted it to because it was just too small, it was too limiting. And then another thing that he noted was there didn't seem to be very like strength and weaknesses between like water versus fire, right? There was none of those strength and weaknesses, plus or minuses, benefits to those that you feel like it should. If it's this Pokemon-esque thing, the elements should make a difference to your choice and thoughts and battle and tactics. And you feel like there wasn't much there. Also, one of the things is as you play out the enemy cards of what they're going to do, actually are placed face up, so you always know what their immediately next action is going to be. And he wished that that was face down, which will probably be at the end of the rule book of how to make it harder, is that you could flip those over. But he felt like there was just too much information if he knew exactly what the enemy was going to do. Felt like it made it too simple. And this has been Game Brigade that's talked about this, and he did say that he felt like combat was just not quite there. It wasn't as engaging as he wanted it to be. Now, these next few things are kind of just the questionable things. Not really a negative exactly what they saw. It's more of a negative of not sure what is going to be next. Because the solo portion was only sent out to most of them. A couple people got the roguelite version, but I don't think anybody got the co-op or the 1v1. There's new videos now that just came out, but not very many actual YouTubers got it or reviewers got it. So that just raises some question of like, okay, how are those modes going to be, right? When you offer a solo, a co-op, a 1v1, a roguelite, in other games, how often are all of those versions amazing? Right? Usually it seems like, yeah, this is like a really good solo, but okay co-op or okay 1v1, right? It's kind of hard to know that because they only gave out the solo and roguelite, and the roguelite was only a handful. So that's just a worry or a question. We just don't know. Chris George from Room and Board, he did his 5 reasons not to back, right? Because it crossed 1 million, so he does 5 reasons why not to back. And one thing that I kind of went along this a little bit when we were going through this Kickstarter, is after going through that, do you know how you play? It didn't say anything about the actual game. Like, it didn't even talk about this card play right here. Yeah, these 4 cards. It didn't even talk about that, right? Of like those playing. It does not tell you much about gameplay, but it sells you greatly on the miniatures and the art. And that's the one negative here that Chris talked about, was like, they are marketing. So if you're gonna back this, make sure that if you get rid of all this art, do you still want it? What's that reason? Just making sure you have that right reason behind your backing. Not saying if you like this, that's the wrong reason, but just making sure that your reason is right for backing it, because they are very good at marketing. So make sure you understand what you want. Once again, not really sure how it's evolving, how the story will evolve and the gameplay will evolve at all, because there's not much more past the first few scenarios. Someone did talk about how it's cool because you could tame all the Mistling, but at least during the first couple, which it could be different because it was only the first couple, but the first couple missions, it was like, well, why wouldn't I tame? Right? There was not really a question like, oh, no, we just need to kill him. Well, it's not. Right? It was like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to tame him. Right? So it wasn't a decision. It was like, yeah, obviously we're going to do that. Which I would hope down the road, that they would actually make it a harder decision, because it was just the first few, but that was a worry of someone. Once again, this map is pretty small, so they felt like the movement wasn't as a big thing to your strategy, because it's such a small thing. It's like, well, yeah, I'll move 2 and then he'll move 2 and attack, right? Like, movement wasn't doing anything too much. Also with this map is sometimes you'll place tokens here on the map, and then when you put your miniature on it, it's like, well, do I slide it off? Do I just place my miniature Alkawampus? Right? So the map wise like that didn't feel like it was well utilized. And as you can see, there's a lot of cards out to the side. There's even more cards like equipment stuff that you could use in items that's not shown here that are off to the side. So the board can be kind of messy as you're playing, because there's no like actual spot for a lot of the cards. Now another worry was that these foil cards were very, very good. Like, they were very good cards, an instant add to your construction deck, which that made a worry of like, okay, by the end you have all these foil cards, and you're just gonna have a deck full of foil cards and be way super strong. So he was worried about the balance of that aspect and just coming too easy by the end. Also, he talked about their backstory, like the actual world building was not much. It was like, you're placed here and this is the direction you're going. There wasn't a whole lot of like backstory of why, who, what, when, how, why about everything and what was going on within the world. And he wishes that there was more backstory there. And the game can get a little thinky. This might take you a little bit longer to complete the game, meaning the game just might run a little too long. All right, now who is back? Out of the 39 videos, probably like 20 some odd different YouTubers who said that they were going to back it or were not going to back it. Once again, there's not a lot of YouTubers that actually verbally say, yes, I am backing this one, or no, I am not backing this one. But I actually did get a lot of people to kind of talk about what they're going to do. So Just a Geeky Dad talked about, he said, I will back this day 1. So he was all in way before too. Bauer's Gaming Corner, he actually said that this might be the first, he's never backed a Kickstarter game, he said, but this might be the first one that he does, once again because of that $55 price point. He was very tempted that this might be his first one that he backs. So that's saying something, I think. Eat, Drink, and Game talked about that he's already back in this game. He's just not sure if he wants to add more or not at this point, right? So he's already in, and he's contemplating whether or not he wants to increase his pledge or not. League of Games, he is one that said that he is going to pass right now, but he might actually look at it during the late pledge to see how everything's going and might back then. And then Azure Death Solo Gaming, he talked about, once again, he's not backing it, but he's really leaning into backing it because of that $55 entry point. And ratings, we only have basically one rating, but 2 different ratings. We have Bauer's Gaming Corner, which rated us a B-, but once again, that's the Kickstarter really, mainly because there's no rulebook, there's no gameplay stuff, but it's very markety, so he gave it a B-. And then Shelf Size tentative rating was a 7, and then Ashton's personal rating was also a 7 out of 10. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now for the big question. Well, I don't know if it's the question, maybe you could care less what I think, but what are my conclusions from reading? So I went through all the good, all the bad. I'll be honest, when I first looked at this, I thought it was really cool, but I'm like, I don't need another game like this. It's just, I don't know how much I'll play with it, but my kids are starting to get older. My oldest is 7, and so I probably could start playing a game like this with him, so I am tempted to do that. But the more I watch this, the more the gameplay actually really does intrigue me, which makes me really mad that this Kickstarter has nothing on there. You could read through all of that and not know a thing about game, which is frustrating, and which honestly kind of scary. If it wasn't Awakened Realms, I would 100% not back, right? Because there's no gameplay. There's a lot of videos about gameplay, but it's just solo, right? Just a couple tutorials. So that's my honest opinion of why this has almost $3 million backed already with 15,000 backers. It's because it's Awakened Realms, and they have more or less delivered. Actually, I forgot to put this in here. Someone talked about how they were worried about the complexity and how this game will actually turn out. So we looked up the designer of this game. The designer of the game was the same designer of The Great Wall and other other games that weren't too fiddly, that weren't too intense, but it seemed pretty good. So that actually helped him say that he liked this game. I think that this, if you're at all interested in this, I think that $55 is a for sure bet, because for two reasons. One, $55 for this type of game, not bad nowadays. Two, I guess number two is actually two separate parts. You have this 100% satisfaction guarantee from Awakened Realms themselves. So if you don't like it, you can get that $55 back. You are going to lose a little bit in shipping and stuff. That is to note. But you're not losing your whole pledge. And two, I think this game will hold its value easily. Also, Alex from Board Game Co talked about that. I think just because of one, all of the game found exclusives that are in here and the miniatures, right? Awakened Realms does amazing miniatures. I think they will always be up for sale. So if you're at all leaning towards it, I think it is an easy back, because I feel like it's a very safe back. Because one, safe back because Awakened Realms says it's a safe back, and two, secondhand market will do very well with this game as well. I think that is my opinion. I think a lot of the negatives that I talked about were more of like, oh well, I'm worried about this, or well, if I had to say something, I would say this. Right, so there were negative parts, but I don't feel like anyone had like real strong anti videos against this, which usually YouTubers are not going to post that if they're really anti. But I feel like everything was mostly positive in that aspect, which kind of pushed me to actually back it myself. I have not backed it yet, but I might actually. Also, I have actually just started my YouTube membership and a Patreon. So if you like these reviews and you want more, become a member and you'll get firsthand. If you say you want a game reviews, I will do it hands down, no questions asked. And if you just want to help me out, go ahead. The links will be down in the description below for my YouTube membership and Patreon. I will see you later.